and thank you so much for coming. My name is Cara Mandel. I am co-founder and CEO of Interwoven Immersive, a LA-based collective that does immersive and experiential marketing and events and all sorts of good stuff. My business partner, Rachel Walker, is here with me as well. We organized this panel to talk about the difference between what we're all referring to as a Instagram palace. We're talking about immersive marketing, how you can incorporate actors and story to kind of help fans engage with your brand on a deeper level, build brand loyalty. And we've assembled an amazing panel of guests to speak to the subject, a bunch of experts from various different areas. We have producers, actors, creators, immersive strategists, and I'm gonna let them take it from here because they are much smarter than me. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our moderator, the amazingly talented immersive actor and creator, Dasha Kittredge.
Hello, everyone. It's my wonderful job to introduce these other panelists here. I've been an immersive performer since 2012, when I kind of got the bug of the performance and magic that can happen between an audience and an immersive performance. And so since then I've been performing in all sorts of immersive theater productions, and now it's turned into a lot of brand activations as well, incorporating this kind of theatrical element into branded events. And so now I've become a creative director as well and started curating and consulting and kind of helping other people make these kinds of things happen. So I would like to begin by introducing Niyia Mack. Niyia is an incredible producer that I've worked with before on numerous events. I met her in a theatrical production of Delusion that she was a producer on, but she has a very strong theater background, a large experience for like immersive theater productions, large-scale immersive theater productions in Los Angeles primarily. But she also has worked with lots of different theaters, such as the Sunny Spot Productions, Pasadena Playhouse, the Clarence Brown Theater in Tennessee, Gold Star events. So she comes at this from like prep production, getting all of the ducks in a row kind of stuff, and putting out fires kind of deal. So that's Niyia. Next we have Taylor Katai. The Associate Director of Strategy at Giant Spoon. Taylor also comes from a theater background. We found out today that we all come from theater backgrounds, which makes a lot of sense. But she's been kind of, her trajectory went from marketing and events, and that kind of turned into her producing events and content for organizations such as Susan J. Komen, Simon Fuller 19 Entertainment, things for Fashion Week, and then eventually at NBC, and now she has been with Giant Spoon helping them strategize these kinds of events and really, have strategy going on for all of the preparation, but also through the whole execution and adapting to things, because live events, as we all know, can change in a heartbeat. So that's Taylor. And then we have Justin Fix. Justin also has a background in theater and performance. He's been in national tours of things like Cats, Hairspray, comes from a strong performance background, but also has an incredibly strong base in hospitality and management. For instance, he's been a producer for events, for an events company called Bash Please. He was the director of operations for a restaurant group. So he has a very special combination of skills that helps him really understand the actor side, but also how to execute. And now he has his company, JFI Productions, which does theatrical plays that are immersive and interactive, but also he curates immersive theatrical experiences for brands such as Amazon, Spotify, Facebook. So that is Justin. So I just want to kind of get a lay of the land in terms of who you guys are. So if you could just raise your hand, if you're not a maker of these kinds of things, but you've been to them and you've felt something about it, and that's what made you interested in coming to this. Just like you've been someone that's just been a watcher of things. Show of hands. Cool. And then how about if you are a creator of immersive events or branded events? Okay, and then if you work in marketing, like specifically just like marketing, and you're not necessarily on site, but you're in the development of these kinds of things, a show of hands for that? Okay, very cool. So let's get to this whole thing. It's a very broad term. What is immersive? So I'd like to start asking you guys, in just a sentence, what is immersive to you, and what is it not? So let's start with Taylor.
Sure. I think really our approach for immersive, I think that word is very versatile in terms of what it covers, but really as I approach it, it's more about creating almost like an alternate reality for you where you really are feeling removed from your general life and being put full into this world where it's rich, it has a backstory, and so it's about just taking you out of your natural state and creating this complete full world that you forget that other existence pretty much.
Justin?
I will say, to me, immersive experiences, immersive marketing, activations, interactions, whatever they create emotional connections. And I think that is what we will talk about for the next hour, on what a really good, great brand activation comes from, is that personal touch that has that element of hospitality to it, has that flavor, and has that heart coming from a person-to-person connected moment.
Agreed. I would say immersive to me is the moments that you're able to intimately connect with an audience and have them invest in such a way that they need to play a part in order for the action to continue. So in a world where I'd say potentially traditional theater, you really are much more of a spectator. Immersive installations, theater experiences are all about getting the audience to actually play a role and to hopefully get some sort of payoff from investing in that role.
Awesome. So why these experiences work, I think a lot of people come away saying, that was so much fun, or this was so unique, but really getting down to the nitty-gritty of why it does work. So I want to ask you guys what you think really the main things are for why it can work and feel so magical for people going through it. Why don't we just go the same route?
Sure. I think in a world where we are sort of isolated in terms of our experience in digital and those moments, and there's a lot of value in that, bringing people together to share an experience really does provide a deeper connection. As we've all said, it really is about triggering an emotion, and when someone's providing that emotional experience for you, it really does build a personal relationship, almost like a friend or something on that level where you now have this thoughts and feeling and kind of complex, like, oh my God, I had fun, but I was scared, or depending on what the experience it is, a brand is really being able to now create all of those complex emotions. And so just really being able to push it into that space, it works in a way that really, traditional media can't necessarily reach.
And to Taylor's point too, I think the market's oversaturated, right? The way that we are seeing things flash before us becomes as much like a slide right, slide left mentality. Because like 78% of millennials right now under the age of 35 are spending their funds on desirable goods as far as experiences. So like whether it be travel or concerts or festivals like this one, right? A moment where we can get 200-300 people in a room and create this moment of synergy and change. And most of them, all of you have your cell phones as well, 60% of them are sharing that of their experience. So that ROI for us, the way that we can use our audience, this word of mouth, is naturally now getting placed onto the social network, which is causing the nucleus of having 3,500 people attend your event. But by the end of it, you've started to expand this branch and sort of make this move that you would normally not be able to do by doing a one-off like brand activation or throwing promo models on the sidewalk to sample some sort of coconut water, right?
A little different. I also say it's about creating a safe space, I cannot say that enough, a safe space where people are comfortable engaging in the world that you've created. So a lot of times you're asking people to talk to strangers about things they would not even tell people that they love about. So to create a world that is narratively driven and to also make it safe enough for adults to come and really feel that they can play and share, and as we're coming back to the word invest in, I think that's key to the work that we're doing and a lot of the memories that we're able to create.
I do think that in ones that really work, there's a clarity that happens for the audience of they know where the rules are, they know that they're allowed to do this or they're not allowed to do this, because there's a lot of back and forth play that can happen, and if the rules haven't really been set down from kind of the onboarding experience, onboarding for these experiences is extremely important to just, because if you don't know where the rules are, you're in this state of, am I allowed to do this? And then in this confusion, worry, you're losing out on all the fun that you could have if you just knew those things. So I think the onboarding experience for these gives you a lot for the fun, payoff with the fun, and it also lets the audience have this thing that we're talking about with agency, where they feel like they can do things. They feel and they know what they can do, what's not allowed to do. So I think that's also very important to talk about too. And we have our kind of comparison here, essentially comparing this to things where it's all about the picture, the photo op, the Instagram. So if you make it all about this picture or thing that you're forcing your audience to kind of feel like they have to do, and if it's all about that, you're losing the feeling of kind of magic in the story of what you're trying to get across. So I think if we can just talk about like how story is incorporated and how you can incorporate story into something that, you may think that your brand doesn't have a lot of story that goes along with it, but every brand has a story. And it doesn't have to be something that's about a TV show to be an incredible immersive brand activation.
Yeah, we talked a lot about this. I predominantly do it from a TV and film perspective, which is inherently a storytelling experience when we walk away from it. But in terms of Instagram and sharing, it is valuable, and really, like Justin said, that's how we're maintaining that reach. An adjusted KPI is really of how often you're sharing and how often you're getting that visual hashtag, all of those necessities out there. But the difference between an in-depth storytelling experience is really the connective tissue between the moments of the Instagram. So again, you can't discredit any moment that can be shared out. So throughout all of your design experience, you have that in mind, that how people move throughout the space from one moment to the next is really what makes that difference. So rather than just going, I'm here, I'm gonna move forward, you almost don't realize you're being moved forward, whether it be actors kind of guiding you into a different room or anything more photo op. It really is just kind of the mental state of how you position through those, and then therefore what the motivation is behind sharing.
I think the word interactive, immersive, experiential, pop-up, it's a trigger word right now. It's a way to grab and to capture our audiences. And it's honest to say that there's a death of retail happening. From like Rite Aid and Sears and Claire's and Toys R Us and Radio Shack and Sports Authority. Those are dying. But then you also have brands that are reinventing the wheel to reach their consumers, like Lego. Lego is now creating these big, elaborate play places for kids to come and to ideate and strategize and come together and build these worlds together. You have companies like Patagonia and REI who are pulling together the community to go on these adventure hikes and you have people like, what's like another one, like Lululemon calling people to gather as a community for free yoga classes. And at the end of the day, what speaks to me, coming from a performer, what Dasha spoke to, it's all about the people. It is all about the people, and I think when you start to invest in people that are producing this type of work, and you start to invest in the storytellers, which are either us as like event producers, but I would say much more like this panel, like we are trying to be storytellers. And I think if you put also that agency, and if you put sort of that back onto that of your staff, you know, of your actors, they become just as much your storytellers inventing the wheel. Because I will tell you, experiencing grand activations, like Taylor was a part of last year for, you know, Westworld, you know, those experiences are mind-blowing. And when you dive in and you get to take a piece home with you, and you get to take a collector's hat, I will tell you this space is much more than puzzles and scavenger hunts. It is about moments with individuals that feel unbelievably real, that allow you to feel like you're transported into another time and place for us as adults, for us to be there and for us to feel like there's some sort of escapism where we can have that sense of joy and play and wonder. Like, we make believe. And when we believe as individuals, we feel like things are like achievable and reachable and real. And when you do that on a brand level, you begin to win people's attention, and then once you win their attention, you change their attitude on that of your brand.
And so much of that is about execution with your talent, with your, you know, brand ambassador or actor, or there's a sliding scale of people that can really do both, people that can bring it back to the brand, but be engaging and be, you know, hire improvisers, hire people that are immersive actors. There are places that. So I think that your talent is really who's going to do that execution for you. So
I'd also say there's a responsibility there in terms of there are other mediums and art forms that you can go to, and the action item at the end was that you were entertained and that you made it through that. There are opportunities here that I've been a part of, I'm sure this whole panel can speak to it, that the action item is not just buying whatever the product is. The action item might be go and tell your friends about it and get them excited about something they didn't even know was a possibility. So when you're creating story, when it's done well, you can really make something transformative and something that has something specific and actionable after the experience is ended, and I think that's invaluable.
Yeah. I've been currently casting some of these things, and finding the right actor for each role in this is super important, and it's been a lot of fun doing that. So I want to change this and start talking about just breaking it down in terms of what your most successful immersive activation was. If you could just talk about the why, like how did these categories of things we're talking about fit into the execution of something that you worked on?
So Giant Spoon, the team at Giant Spoon, did do Westworld here last year, and then also Game of Thrones this year. I worked on an activation in LA called the Inkle for movie The Happy Time Murders. So even though how vastly different all of those movies were, your strategic approach to it, while varies, really make sure that you're going, why are we doing this? What is it that we're wanting the audience to get out of this? It isn't even necessarily going, what is the brand you need out of this? But again, we're gonna keep coming back to this. It's all about you guys and who's going through, because at the end of the day, that's really all that matters, because that's what drives you to watch the show or the movie. So for Westworld, it was such a beautiful opportunity to bring this concept to life. And it was a fully immersive, you got to choose your hat, you really had this sense of pride going through. And we had that moment, you know, for the Inkle, we did an immersive where you could interact with Jim Henson puppets in a bar and really have this chance to experience this world that cannot exist. And watching people come through, their faces light up like you're at Disneyland. There's this kid instinct that kind of comes back with play. And so no matter what it is, again, with Blade Runner, Westworld, or the other amazing projects that our team at Giant Spoon work on, what is the sense of play and interactive as we're doing that? And I think we've always had this amazing opportunity to bring that to life.
And how, for each one of you guys, for this particular one, like how did you define that success? What was it? What was the definition of that for you?
So KPI gets into a tricky area here. So it isn't your traditional, like, what is your ROI, but really it is that sharing. What compels people to share? What is the reach there? Publicity is a huge element of this. From a marketing perspective, this has to be a dual partnership between publicity and marketing, especially as you lead up to the event. You need to market the marketing in this regard, but it's because the immersive experience doesn't really feel like marketing, so it really works into the entire campaign. So as you approach it, you start to think how you can build that up before you even go in, and your KPI is then about publicity and reach, before, during, and after. You aren't doing something hoping they stumble upon it, and then afterwards they're sharing it out like crazy. You need to earn their trust and work up to it, and really draw that out over a period of time. Otherwise, this one moment in time kind of gets lost. You need to extend the experience. So that's really what we think of is, digital reach, publicity reach, and then the last one is throughput. If we really think about like just getting down to the numbers from a very practical brand perspective, how many people can go through your experience? And that really does matter because all of those people are sharing. And so it all kind of bumps into one another. And again, it's very fluid between how those are all related. I think it really does just matter how you bring it to life, not just on site, but expansive everywhere.
Justin.
What VR is doing for film and television is what we are trying to do sort of in the live event space of things. I guess the best example as far as a pitch goes, we approached Amazon Studios. Aaron Mackey had a #1 podcast, and they were creating a series called Lore. And the pitch was this: you have an Audible, podcast for Aaron, coming from him personally. You are now creating a visual album, right? This series of his short stories and narrative. Well, why not put people in that story? And so we created a 60-minute walkthrough experience that felt like a living trailer. And it hinted to what the series would be. And of course, we opened our doors the night the show premiered. And just simply because of LA and how things can, spread through social, it was picked up for a second season after the first week because of this brand activation. Not to say that was because of us, but it goes to show you that we as a society are always craving and wanting more. And I think that was a project that I was really sort of proud of that we worked on.
And it was very fun to act in it as well, and terrify people.
Dasha and I work with a company called Metaforyou, and we worked on an installation with Uncle Nearest Whiskey, which I actually wasn't even aware of the entire backstory, but Uncle Nearest was the slave responsible for teaching Jack Daniels all that he knows about whiskey. And if you go into Jack Daniels' backstory and history, there's reference of Uncle Nearest. So the partner that we worked with to bring this story to life is actually one of the only people doing the actual research in terms of understanding a lot of what we don't know about their relationship and how Jack Daniels whiskey came to be, and now Uncle Nearest being its own brand, all the in-between of that. And so we worked together with this company to tell that story and also figure out ways to make whiskey exciting, right? Because as Justin has mentioned, there's a lot of oversaturation, and there are 1,000 different ways that you can promote something and gain new, new interest and new fans. And this particular partner was very interested in making sure that we stuck true to the original way that the whiskey was made. The ingredients were very, very specific, and we took opportunities to break down what the recipe looked like and have people sort of play parts of what that looked like, as well as built in some immersive poetry for those that came in and engaged with the artist that was taking care of that. So I'd say for us, what we found most successful is that we completely exceeded the client's expectations. I think they had some ideas of what immersive is and what it can do, and because we were able to come in and support that with using actors versus brand ambassadors, and also with allowing everyone that attended to have the agency to sort of roam about the space and take in the different elements as they'd like to. It was quite successful and really fun.
And I think part of that success is that the values of the brand, write down what really your core values of the brand are and connect that to the story and the text that your performers are going to be saying, and you can turn those things into questions. And that's a really wonderful way to for your performers or brand ambassadors to kind of embody the brand and also connect the values of the brand to the consumer and the person going through it, and make them kind of think about these values in a way that's not just about the product. So I would say that as you're going through and having to approve things like, okay, we're going to try and do this thing where we have an interactive, we're adding this interactive element. When you're approving your scripts for these things, really boiling it down to the core values and how that connects to your brand and your brand story, I think is super important and makes it more effective. So in terms of executing these kinds of events, it takes a lot of preparation, a lot of rehearsal sometimes, and the how of doing all of this is just everything. So starting kind of from the beginning with pitching this idea, if your company hasn't done this kind of thing before and you really think it could be effective, pitching this and using the right terminology with that is super important. So could we go around maybe into talking about the pitch process?
So if we really step back, this is a pretty new thing. This can be scary for clients. I don't blame them. It's a big investment. It's a moment in time. It can feel kind of fleeting. So when you get into it, why should you do experiential over, out of home or, on air commercials? It's a new thing. So it does take a lot of education, trust. Again, we keep going back to trust. And then at the same time, this is supposed to be fun. Let's have some fun doing this. And so getting clients to remember that this is fun for them too, getting their brand out in a new way. It might be scary, but they're also jumping on board with something that's more innovative for them to get out there. So much of what I do from a strategic perspective is really going, why should you do this? And if it doesn't make sense, if we beat it up back at home and it doesn't make sense, we're not gonna have a client do it. We really believe that there needs to be a motivation for it and a reason to do it. And so that helps when we go to them because we believe in it so much, we're able to get them on board. I think it really is just kind of repositioning how you allocate your media dollars and how you approach that when you're building it out, and really thinking about how do we want to tell your story, not just for the movie, but your story as a studio or a brand or anyone who's wanting to kind of reach people in a new voice. How can that happen here? And so it's really just thinking about the whole picture as opposed to just going, this is fun, this is cool, let's do something.
And breaking that down with where you're spending your money, you get pretty specific about that from the get-go, right?
Yeah. It's full transparency. You're not trying to trick anyone into doing anything. This is very much about going, this is a marketing campaign within your campaign. This isn't just a small piece of the bigger puzzle. This is a campaign all in itself because you create so many assets out of it. You have video that you can incorporate into digital content. You have these social pictures that you can allocate. For Happy Time Murders, they ended up cutting a trailer using footage from the ink hole to show that connective tissue between the movie and the event and really capitalize on that brand affinity, which was so brilliant because, again, you're using it to build out the rest of your campaign. You're not giving up on it once it's over. So it's just being creative in the way that you reallocate those funds in ways that you maybe didn't think of ahead of it. And so you really do have to look at the bigger picture, and media dollars have to be spent, again, beginning, middle, and end throughout the whole thing. And so how can you make this last for you longer?
Justin, in terms of also pitching, because you pitch different clients to create these things, but also, for instance with Facebook Watch, we were doing something and they only kind of booked us actors for a couple days, and there was an opportunity where they finally came and they were seeing the value that the actors were bringing, and they decided to extend it. So you can also, as the event is happening, really having eyes on it and adapting around what the response is super important too as you're kind of supervising these things. So can you talk to your experiences with pitch and also ongoing, since you're an on-site manager as well?
There's 2 white papers that everyone who's really interested in like the matrix of this, like how to really measure this stuff. There's a white paper that NVE Experiential Agency came up with, and I highly recommend you read through that if you're interested to see like how can you show the value of this stuff. There's also a white paper that came out that was just drafted this year at this Immersive Design Summit that takes place up in San Francisco that outlines the trend. And there's a severe trend. I will say just alone in the United States in I think 2018, there was over 700 large-scale brand activations that considered themselves immersive. Now, you gotta split that down the middle, right? Because some of them are free tickets, all advertising promotion, and on the other side, we got tickets at the door. But I would say that those are two moments to be take note on if you guys want to do a little more read on that. And then to your question, Dasha, I think we can never undervalue ourselves. The overhead is extremely high, and people most likely are like scratching their head. And to me, I've never wanted to do another party. Like we're all here. We went to 4 parties last night, and I hate, it's just another party. It's another open bar. It's another appetizer. It's another set of music. It's conversation. Okay, and then guess what? You're looking for the next party. Instead of having that aha moment, where you're like, wow, I went to this place, I spent 3 hours, I played poker, I got a branded hat, I saw a secret, I buried a dead body, it's so much more than that, So I never wanted to do another party, and I would say that to us as creators, we are desperate for the work sometimes, to the opportunity to create. And I think sometimes we get shafted or we get undercut because we just are trying to get the job. And at the end of the day, when you're trying to pinch pennies, I was sitting across the table from a bunch of executives, and I was like, I can't believe that you're about to spend upwards of $200,000 for a one-night premiere party. It blew my mind. I was like, why would you? What? You got the money, but you're also catering to the celebs and the press, and for them, it's another party. Why not open it up to the general public and to the fans and win fans, and then build out an activation that could take a fraction of that same budget and introduce it to a different group of people and spread it over the course of 6 weeks and make it a statement, and then make it a thing where the producers come back to you and they go, you know what, this is really working. And I look at them, I'm like, if you are gonna charge, if your client is gonna charge $55 for a beautiful bartender to serve champagne, I hope you would invest paying an actor $55 to take a guest through a journey.
Investing in...
Sorry.
I love watching all of you nod. Like, all of you are like, yeah.
It's so true.
How about you and I with like pitching and adapting to different clients and with that kind of process?
I agree with everything that's been said. I think what's so interesting about the work that we do is that you have to understand your value. So in a world that it's not understood how much what you're creating does matter, and that there are dollars that you can attach to that, that's a big battle that I feel like, even in a saturated market, that I'm constantly up against. And what I don't mind is that I don't mind having those conversations about money ever. So when we're in those spaces and we have to really prove the value, what's interesting is we are the product. Like I can draw up what the story will look like, I can tell you where the actors will be, and I can give you some sort of understanding, but until the product is actually put in place and the experience is actually happening, you really don't know what I can create. So I think you have to be so clear about what you know, what you're able to do with what they have, and not being shy to talk about funds and money and the overhead, and how this is a business and how what you're doing is unique to their particular brand. So whatever strategy I'm coming in with, this is because I know that this particular product will be successful if we are able to market it with these specific elements.
If I could piggyback off of Justin's point and Niya's point, it is also an opportunity. We talk about influencer events a lot, I think that's something that keeps coming up. How do we use influencers? How do we use influencers? And then for publicity, for some of our events, we use the activation as the new publicity. So rather than a press junket or things like that, it isn't just about even giving fans the opportunity, which it is, but sometimes it's so fans can read about it. It's introducing publicity to it. So they're having a new experience. They're like, thank you for throwing an original event for a brand. They're getting a new relationship to it as well. And if that's part of your KPIs, then that's an opportunity for them. They have so much more fun. They're excited. They genuinely want to talk about it. And so it really does change from a premiere party or a traditional approach in terms of your events. If you use this as a piece of that puzzle, they're going to thank you and they're going to appreciate it. They'll be fans and they'll be advocates for you on your part. Same with influencers. Influencers don't just want to go to a party and have a drink in their hand. They need a reason to be there just the same as all of us. And so this really does give them a chance to not just go, oh, I was here, thanks, and leave. It is really going, oh my God, I got to go. And that was really cool. So it just really shifts and making everyone to a fan rather than a party.
I have another example that we were working, Dasha and I were in a show called Delusion, and we had a really fantastic sponsor a couple years ago that we worked with that they, obviously one of the biggest parts of the investment for them was getting a buyout night. Got it, no problem. So we coordinated everything on our end, and we didn't actually realize, although we asked a lot of questions about their goals, but we didn't actually realize that a big portion of the folks that they were inviting to this buyout night, they were bartenders, but they were part of the distribution team, and they have basically seen these drinks, as Justin said, they've seen these drinks presented to them in every way that you can think of, right? Bars, fancy whatevers. And so when they came to the buyout night, it was so fantastic because we heard from the client that either half the folks that attended had never heard of Delusion before, had no idea, they were just delighted to be there, and their minds were completely blown. Great. The second half of them had heard of Delusion, they'd never been able to get a ticket just because of the demand, and now they were in the space to get to see their actual product being showcased. So the client was beyond thrilled, and the beautiful part about that wasn't an activation. That wasn't something that we pitched to them per se. That was them saying that we want to have a night that we bring our VIPs that don't otherwise get to mingle in this sort of atmosphere, and basically take them for a night out, wow them, surprise them, make sure that they have a great time. And because we were just doing the show as we normally would, I would just beyond thrilled.
So I want to get to the how and the technicalities of the kind of producing. For the production and putting up this kind of show and this kind of event, you've convinced the people with the money to give you the money for this kind of event, and then how you really go through the process of executing it. So if we can talk about your stage in the process, what you do in terms of production.
Sure. So what I love so much about what I get to do is strategy doesn't just do their thing and hand it off and hope that things go great and celebrate at the end. We really do have a core group that sticks together, and we are a team from beginning to end, so strategy really gets to stay through. In terms of how we approach the storytelling, that why never really gets lost in it, and then also making sure, a big team that we all have the same goal in mind is really powerful, especially when you have a group of actors that you're bringing in. They need to be very clear on what you're trying to accomplish. They need to feel safe that they know what's going on. They need to know what the plot of the movie is, things like that, so that they feel safe that when, guests are coming in and we are not all improvisers, but we want to plan that space, and our actors are the ones that make you safe to do that, and also they need to feel safe doing it in return. So that's where the strategy really plays off on that. We have an amazing team that we work with at my go-to to bring in full actors, where for Game of Thrones this year, they were working with dialect coaches leading up to it to maintain that authenticity. So it really is about maintaining your through line from beginning to end and not kind of getting lost in the chaos of production, which is very easy to do, but staying focused on what your original goal is. So you're thinking about like, why are we doing this from beginning to end?
What does that mean? Like having meetings consistently where you're bringing it back to that, or how do you guys do that?
We're extremely collaborative, so it really is a round table of people from each department coming together and brainstorming together, building it out, getting each other's feedback, because there is a lot of respect for each of the roles. If you don't all respect what the other person next to you is doing, it's going to be tough. It's going to be a long road. And so coming together and really having all of those minds that are coming at it from a different perspective, because I can kind of be like, oh, strategically, this is our dream scenario, and the production comes in and goes, cool, that's not possible. So how do we sort of meet reality with our goals and coming that together, and then also just, you know, the brilliant design and all the details and how much you have to overthink it. The more people who are kind of there to be on your team and clarify those roles and clarify those moments, it's going to be better. So we really do approach it from a collaborative standpoint where strategy gets to stay on, which is very lucky and actually sometimes fairly rare.
Justin, you produce things from beginning to the end, and you're on site and doing it the whole way through. So in terms of working with talent and how early you bring in talent and then rehearsing with them, if you can speak to that and your process with that.
Yeah, I would say give yourself 8 weeks. You know, these bids, normally the way you're trying to grab a job, you know, don't undercut it. If you're 6 weeks out, I would, you know, personally I say pass. Especially if you're having more elements than just, you know, an ensemble or casting a bunch of actors, especially if there's a much production build out. Give yourself 12. I would say it's a workshop process. You invest in your people, you know, you invest in your team, and I will tell you, not your average, you know, promo model can throw on a costume and then play a role and be Captain Morgan all of a sudden. You know, like again, cheese, right? And not to say that, like, sorry, Captain Morgan, but a little cheese, right? But now you take that down, and maybe Captain Morgan has a bunch of wenches, and now it's Captain Morgan. You get to board this awesome ship, and then you get to learn how to pour Captain Morgan cocktails. Maybe I should pitch this to Captain. But I digress. I think it's a workshop process, and I think when you start to train and you start to build an ensemble, a company. Taylor's even saying you brought how many people back here from last year?
We have a core team, especially when we get into the space, like we have our standards, and David Wally and the team at Micro 2 really embrace them, so it is a community, they trust them, they know they go to them, and so we bring them out here. We also then bring people from Austin. Westworld was a lot of Austin actors who then became part of that team. So we really do, it's about finding that balance, and then when you have someone that you know you can rely on, bringing them along for the ride is such, like it puts your heart at ease so much knowing that you have that in your back pocket, which you do a lot with your actors.
And I'll just say, like, coming from, it's hospitality 101 for me. At the end of the idea, it's like the guest is the star, and you take on that, you know, you take on that role of that concierge of like bringing these people through this journey. So I would just say, really spending time with your actors, you know, on every level, from the way you move guests to the way you greet guests, to the pressure points on where to touch people, where people feel comfortable as far as touch and consent. Because I think what we run into the day and age is so many of these big brands are like, they're gonna have to have a waiver before they come in and experience it. It's like, yeah, isn't it weird that we can touch people? And just as simple that, or a strong eye contact, can be life-changing in the day and age of this. Okay.
And I will say that Justin does things like forces the performers to say, let's practice this, get up on your feet. I'm gonna try to be a bad audience member and interject you all the time. You know, don't be afraid. If you're managing this kind of event, if you're, you know, delegating out a lot of these things, you can still come in the day of where the actors are prepped, ready to go, and just say, I just want to play with you. You're allowed to do that as like the head of some project like this, and the actors will thank you for it because it'll set them more at ease, and you'll get to know them better. And in general, like, it can never hurt to just go in a little bit beforehand and meet your performers and say, let's just go through it with you. Like, can you just show me the experience? everyone will benefit.
I always say, sorry. I always say to Dasha, there's always three types of guests. There's the interactor, there's the guest who like really wants to participate, and then there's like the interpreter who's like with you, but like taking it so far left that you're like, no, that's not what this is about. And then you have the interrupter who actually doesn't allow you to do your job.
There's actually another one, which is the complete silent observer. And the main thing is that you may think that they're having an awful time because they're not interacting, but they could be having a mind-blowing experience and they just are more reserved. So not letting what you think is going on, the assumptions about how people are experiencing this guide you, I think it's important too.
We were just talking about this earlier, how much this art form really relies on the actors to co-create. I think in other mediums, they're given a script, a director calls all the shots, and all ideas come from that space. And Immersive is incredibly collaborative, and the actors really do have the freedom to say, this isn't working, or, if I was in this situation, this is what I think might work. I found that you have to rely on that collaboration in order for it to work. And I think as well in those opportunities where you're sort of creating on the fly, you want to make sure if there's any opportunities to beta test, even if it's, some actors sit down and they play the audience and others are on their feet, just beta test and be in the space. Those are key surprises.
One thing I will say before we kind of move on is if you notice we're saying actors and not brand ambassadors, that's a big thing that's shifting from a lot of events. As you kind of see more and more, the role of actors really steps into that brand ambassador. I do think that it's really important to clarify as you're building it out in your strategic approach how you use each of them. Because I'm not saying brand ambassadors are not necessary, they're an integral part to the experience, but it's where and when you use them. It's also about getting them educated and yes, you want to train your actors, but you want your brand ambassadors to be proud of what they're working on too. And so it's really about not just having them show up and be like, cool, hand this out and go on your way. It's about bringing them into the experience too. Our approach for brand ambassadors is really just going, when does the experience shift from out of world to in world? And that's where we kind of shift into our actor mode. So getting your wristband and everything before you step foot into the immersive world is still a brand ambassador because they're there for logistical to move it along so that you aren't having a negative experience before you walk into the space. So brand ambassadors do serve a really integral role to it, but it's when you shift from them into a balance of the actors and how you use them, it really is kind of a give and take in terms of that. So just knowing the difference.
We do want to be able to have some time for Q&A. So if you have a question, if you could come to the microphone here so that we can record the audio of that question. So I just want to open the floor up to you guys if you have any questions about this kind of work or how to execute it.
Or if you just need to leave for the next event, go ahead.
Hi. And introduce yourself and what kind of stuff you do too.
Hi there. My name is Brandon Powers. I'm a director, choreographer, immersive, and mixed reality maker. So I apologize because I was one of the ones that got in late because of the great line you have outside. But I'm curious. I'm trying to really get into this space from the brand side, but consistently find it challenging as a freelance maker to do that. And so I'm wondering about how that can be done, either through pitching specific events to specific agencies or approaching brands directly, because I don't want to work for an agency, because that's not the one thing I want to do with my life, but I do want to help brands execute this way, because I know how to do this work, as I know like Justin would say, like that kind of skill set. Thoughts on that?
I mean, dude, I started my company off a credit card, and I didn't know how to do it. I was an artist who wanted to make this work, and I didn't know how to do it. And it took a few sort of beta or small projects for me to build up my resume in order to then be seen by an Amazon Studios. So I hate to say, add a few credits there, but I will say joining an agency will give you tremendous insight into the production insights and
It doesn't need to be your forever. It's not for everyone. It kind of is a stepping stone of learning. I think that you have a lot of skill there. It's it is an art form within itself, just knowing how to approach it from a brand. And so an agency is a great place to get some training. You don't have to stay forever, but listen and learn while you're there and value your other team members. But I do think also, like, the reality of the world is you got to network. Who do you know? It's just kind of the reality of where we are. Then the agency gives you a chance to do that, which is really nice and really an opportunity to take advantage of. And eventually you may find that it isn't about working at another agency, it's about starting your own. And so it's a stepping stone in that right direction to know how to approach it from a brand perspective.
And not being afraid to just cold call and cold pitch people. If you do have some experience though, working for and through a company, then you can point to that and say, well, I've done this with this, you can recognize this, because people need to, a lot of the time, hear something that they recognize to feel safe and confident in hiring someone new. So getting experience, I think that's great advice, and then just not being afraid to just send out ships, like only some are gonna come back, but sending out emails and just pitching yourself, and not being afraid, like the worst that can happen is people will just say, we're not interested in doing something like this right now.
Everything that has sort of come to me in this world has been quite organic, so it has been like, it has been things, it has been like networking events and just talking to people that are curious about the world, so obviously it starts there. But I'd say if there are opportunities, especially like Comic-Con or South by Southwest, where you can connect the dots for maybe a brand that might not be thinking about it, or if you see $1 million idea, like they're saying, just don't be afraid to approach them. Because 9 times out of 10, I find that most brands don't even know that this could be a possibility.
Yeah.
And if they do, they don't know that it can be a possibility on the way that we're thinking about it, so just pitch, and be aggressive about it, and then whatever you get back, you'll know.
Cool, appreciate it.
Yeah, of course, good luck.
Hi, thanks for a really interesting panel. I'm coming from a slightly different direction. I have a retail space. It's also a hybrid event space, so we create crafting experiences and we sell part of the conference those experiences. So part of my job is creating an engaging experience with the brand every day in that space. So I'm curious, from your experience, how have you seen success creating, I guess, more organic touch points to encourage social sharing in a way that doesn't feel like forced or like you're asking for it, but I think that's
Set design.
a
Hiring a really, really incredible set designer or a team that can make spaces where literally everywhere you look is a photo opportunity, because the whole space is so cool. I mean, I've performed in activations where there's only one little area and it feels like this forced place where you have to line up and like do the thing. And the ones where the sharing goes crazy and exponential are the places where the whole world is that fine detailed with set design. And of course, infusing it with actors perhaps, but I think that's big on that.
My question is about the script process. I know before you said using the actors is a great way to engage with consumers, or you're delivering a brand message that is not so overt. I work a lot in messaging, publicity side, so I guess can you give me an example of how you've seen this done as well, where you're able to really define the script and get across the key message without it being so overtly like, I'm working for a whiskey brand, thing.
Who wants to jump in? For us, it's very much about creating backstory for the actors because so much of it is improvised, and at least for me, I can't speak for everyone, but it is so improvised that you don't want to restrict them to it, but something like our activations where we've sometimes done over almost 500 pages of script or 100, depending on how many people are in it. But really the first thing that we focus on is how detailed the backstory is. They have to know who they are so that they have more room to play. And so just even starting there with this fictional character that they're playing is the same way that you create it for someone in a play so that they know motivation of why they would do this. Who else in the space do they have a relationship with? So it's scripting opportunities as opposed to, for us again, at least scripting lines that they have to stick to. It's the story around the brand. What is the feeling that you're wanting to get? Come have a drink working at the bar and then having it be organic because it's in their hand. And so it's really just giving them the resources and tools to tap into so that they can do what they do best, which is move.
And putting questions in the script. You know, it shouldn't just be the actor just kind of performing and telling and giving all this information. They should be asking questions that make that person really think about wait, what does that mean to me, and why, you know, like, it can be brought back to the brand and the event and why we're all kind of here eventually. But if you make your audience think with questions, that's so important to have in your script.
And if there are opportunities that you can sort of make experiences a lot more personal by knowing the specific person you're going to ask questions to, I always find that's always a mind blower, because they're just expecting to come and see or be entertained. And when you're able to say, like, I know that you specifically help the brand do A, B, and C, and then you can ask questions around that, it just enriches the experience.
And then I will say that, you know, like, for example, you know, most brands, they want to be like, for example, Amazon Prime Video, they wanted to put, you know, they wanted you to know. And at the end of the day, you have the branding on ticketing, you have the branding on the photo booth, you have the branding in the lounge, you have the TV sizzler, like, we got it. It's an Amazon Prime Video present, we got it. But they also wanted that in the script. And I just feel like there's times where you just have to stand up and say, like, it's gonna feel weird if an actor is all of a sudden in character and he's like, welcome, Amazon Prime Video presents. Or, you know, it's like, that's not needed. We got the messaging across. So use the messaging where it's needed, and maybe it doesn't always need to come from, you know, an actor to guest facing.
In fact, I think it makes it more magical if it's not there. The branding isn't just all over the script. Because then they feel like they're being sold to, like, really hardcore, and that can kind of make the person going through the experience feel like, okay, now I realize that I'm just
being sold something rather than experiencing something.
Rather than this is an invitation, and I'm getting something out of this. I'm getting an experience, I'm thinking. I think we have to wrap it up. But thank you guys so much.